Have you ever looked at a dessert menu, seen devil's food cake, and wondered why anyone would name a cake after the devil? It doesn't look evil, it isn't cursed, it's just rich, dark, and delicious. So where did such a dramatic name come from? Was it inspired by religion, a clever marketing trick, or something about the cake itself? And if there's a devil's food cake, why is there also an angel food cake? Today, we will uncover the surprisingly sweet history behind one of the world's most mysterious cake names, right here, on History of Simple Things. Devil's food cake is one of America's most famous chocolate desserts, but its story begins with another cake entirely. During the late 1800s, angel food cake became incredibly popular in the United States. It was unlike most cakes of the time. Made almost entirely from whipped egg whites, it baked into a bright white, airy sponge that seemed almost impossibly light. Its delicate appearance inspired the heavenly name, angel food. But once bakers had an angelic cake, it was only a matter of time before someone imagined its opposite. Around the beginning of the 20th century, cookbooks started mentioning a darker, richer chocolate cake called devil's food cake, creating a playful contrast that immediately caught people's attention. The comparison wasn't meant to suggest anything sinful or dangerous. Instead, it reflected how dramatically different the two cakes were. Angel food cake was light, fluffy, and almost fat-free because it used no butter and only egg whites. Devil's food cake, on the other hand, embraced richness. It used butter, whole eggs, chocolate, and later cocoa powder, creating a cake that was darker, denser, and far more indulgent. Compared to the pure simplicity of angel food cake, this chocolate version seemed almost wickedly luxurious. Calling it devil's food was a humorous way of saying it was too tempting to resist. The timing also helped the name catch on. The late 19th and early 20th centuries were an exciting period for home baking. New ingredients such as baking powder, baking soda, and processed cocoa became widely available, making cakes easier and more consistent to bake. Chocolate itself was becoming more affordable thanks to advances in manufacturing. Instead of being a rare luxury reserved for the wealthy, cocoa products found their way into everyday kitchens. As more families experimented with chocolate desserts, recipes became richer and more creative. Early devil's food cake recipes were not exactly the same as the ones we know today. Some relied on melted chocolate, while others used natural cocoa powder. Many included coffee or hot water to deepen the chocolate flavor without making the cake taste like coffee. Some recipes even called for extra baking soda because natural cocoa is acidic. When baking soda reacts with that acidity, it creates tiny bubbles of carbon dioxide that help the cake rise while also giving it its signature reddish-brown color. Before modern Dutch processed cocoa became common, this chemical reaction made many devil's food cakes look slightly red instead of deep black. Another ingredient quietly shaped the cake's identity: butter. At a time when many cakes were lighter or simpler, generous amounts of butter gave devil's food cake its moist, tender texture. Combined with chocolate and sugar, it created a dessert that felt unusually decadent for its era. That richness reinforced the playful idea that eating a slice was giving in to temptation. Of course, nobody seriously believed the cake had anything to do with the devil. The name was simply memorable, and memorable names sell recipes. Food names have long borrowed dramatic language to attract attention. Throughout history, restaurants and cookbook writers have used words like sinful, heavenly, and wicked to describe especially delicious treats. Devil's food cake fit perfectly into that tradition. Instead of frightening people away, the name invited curiosity. It promised something richer than an ordinary chocolate cake and gave people a fun story to tell whenever they served it. As the cake grew more popular, companies also embraced the name. Throughout the 20th century, baking brands printed devil's food cake recipes on cocoa tins and flour bags. Eventually, boxed cake mixes made it even easier to bake at home. Millions of families grew up celebrating birthdays and holidays with devil's food cake, helping transform what began as a clever contrast into a classic dessert recognized around the world. Today, many people assume devil's food cake is simply another chocolate cake, but bakers often make a distinction. Traditional devil's food cake usually contains more cocoa, a softer crumb, and a slightly tangier flavor thanks to the combination of natural cocoa and baking soda. It is often darker, moister, and more intensely chocolatey than a standard chocolate cake. Modern recipes vary widely, but they all aim to capture that rich, almost luxurious experience that inspired the original name over a century ago. Perhaps the most interesting part of the story is how easily people remember it. If the cake had been called rich chocolate cake, it might have blended into hundreds of similar recipes. But pairing an angel with a devil created an unforgettable contrast. It turned two ordinary desserts into characters in a story. Even people who know nothing about baking often recognize both names because they naturally make us wonder what makes one heavenly and the other devilish. In the end, devil's food cake isn't called that because of superstition or religion. It's called that because someone realized that if there was an angel food cake, its rich, chocolate-filled opposite deserved an equally unforgettable name. The contrast celebrated indulgence, humor, and the growing popularity of chocolate at a time when home baking was rapidly changing. So the next time you see a slice of devil's food cake at a bakery or on a dessert menu, you'll know you're looking at more than just chocolate cake. You're looking at a recipe whose unforgettable name has been tempting people for more than 100 years, and proving that sometimes the sweetest stories come from the simplest things. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.